Greetings, YouTube. This is LMS Tactical, and greetings, LMS Tactical Radio on Podbean. This is Mike with LMS Tactical, and I'm here with a very special guest that I've been looking forward to interviewing for a long time, and her name is Alice VL. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's really my pleasure. And just as a matter of introduction for those who may be new to the channel or to the podcast and don't recognize her name, Alice is, amongst many things, she is a South African expat living in the United States, but she is also the author of a book that we're going to talk about in detail. And the name of the book is My Turn. And the book, and I'll let her expand on this, but the book is more of a mission than just a book for the pleasure of reading. It has a purpose, and the purpose is in literally a matter of life and death. And we're talking about a matter of life and for a lot of people. So with that being said, I'm going to shut up, which is very rare. And Alice, why don't you tell us a little bit about what this book is about and how did you come to write this book?
Mike, I came to America in August of 2018. It was to begin a 4-month book tour. My turn was not even a thought. There was no plans on writing my turn. It was something I actually never wanted to do. But when I got here, I spent a week here and I realized how abnormal life in South Africa was. Here we can sleep at night. There's no walls around the houses. There's no burglar bars in front of the windows. There's no security gates in your house or around your house. There's just no threat, absolutely no threat. And, it took me a while to get into that mindset of that, we don't have to sit up at night. We don't have to lay in bed and listen for noises and sounds and, waiting for somebody to come through the door, 4 or 6 surrounding your bed, And I spoke to my publisher at the time and I said to her, it's really hard for me because I actually now am losing sleep over the people left behind. That was very hard for me to be able to sleep at night and to be able to wander out into the streets or to the shops or to the stores and everybody else back home can't.
Well, let me interrupt for a second and let's think about the people who are tuning in who have no idea what's going on in South Africa. Now, I know that a lot of my listening audience is in South Africa at the moment. So those folks have a very clear understanding of what's going on, but there are always new subscribers. And how would you bring them up to speed in terms of, there are people that would say there's high crime everywhere and there are bars in various cities on the windows. But what makes South African crime different in terms of how you referenced it in the book? What makes that crime different?
It's really, there's so much. There's so many things I can say to you to show you that it's not normal crimes. It's not just high crimes. It's targeted crimes. We hear it every day. We hear how the whites should be slaughtered, how our babies should be used for fertilizer. And then, the moment there's a rally, a Julius Malema rally or a BFLF rally or an ANC rally, they sing the songs, what is known as struggle songs, kill the boo, one settler, one bullet, kiss the boo, and that night and for the next few days, the attacks increase. It's as though they've been given the green light to go after the whites. If you tell them white people have stolen your land, white people have enslaved your forefathers, white people are settlers, they don't belong here. They're actually saying, go after them, go for it, go get them and punish them.
That's not a stretch either.
No.
You correct me if I say anything wrong, but the government of South Africa actually endorses this by many methods. One is by promoting and making changes that are clearly anti-minority, which in the case of South Africa is the white population. and also by turning a blind eye and denying that these crimes are targeted against whites for the specific reason that the victims are white. And now these are some because I want this video and other videos like this, that there's other people making them, and I want these to go out amongst the Western society, not just in America, because the world has got to wake up. Now, you and I know that there's a full-on media blackout that keeps this subject down on the bottom, and the reason for that, depending on who you ask, in my opinion, is that it's not politically correct right now for any of the Western societies that are kind of caving slowly into a more socialist line of thinking and way of living. It's not politically correct or advantageous to really openly care about people who might just have brought it on themselves by virtue of the actions of their ancestors. And that is a whole nother topic. I think my subscribers know how I feel about that. But the crimes that go on and that you talk about in the book are certainly more than a burglary where somebody is trying to steal a TV and the owner catches them and they kill the owner. What makes the crimes different? Talk to the people that have no idea what we're talking about.
Well, you know, burglary is an afterthought. More often than not, they leave with nothing. When they come for you, they let you know they're coming for you. They're not coming for what you've got. What you've got, they'll take on their way out. They'll take weapons, they'll take cash, they'll take phones. Sometimes they leave with a cell phone. Nobody's going to kill a whole family for a cell phone. The other thing is the torture. The tortures that are involved with these killings. It's not as though 2, 3, or 4 people come in, shoot them in their heads, ransack their house, take what they want and leave. That's not how it goes down. They will tie up the men, the dad or the granddad or whoever. They will rape the children. They will slowly torture them and kill them. They will move on to the mothers or the grandmothers. They will do the same. All the while, the dad and the older brother or the grandfather or whoever is sitting watching this taking place. After they've drilled holes in their knees or their ankles, cut off their eyelids, forcing them to watch but unable to fight back. Once they've done what they wanted with the woman and the children, you know, when they've either raped them to death or finally killed them, they will then go and put an end to the men. That's not normal, Mike. That is not a robbery. That is not a normal crime. They have left a husband or a dad. They've left him to live with it as well, you know, so they don't always just go and kill him afterwards. They want him to live with it. And almost always they are referenced as thieves, as they white, they nothing, they need to die.
Alice, I want to drill down on something. And again, I play devil's advocate because I'll keep harping on the fact that there's the target audience for me, and I think you are people that are actually not aware of what's going on. So I want to ask you some, maybe that might seem rhetorical questions, but I want to ask you for the record. How do we know? How do you know that these tortures are taking place? Because they are being denied by the government. How do you know? Do you have evidence of this?
We've got survivors, Mike. Survivors that would say we were hunted like animals. We've got spray painting left on the doors of farmhouses saying, kill the Boer, we'll come back, we'll be back, or whites must die, kill the whites. They walk around with placards in the streets saying, kill the whites. The tortures, you can ask any crime scene policeman if they are being honest or not corrupt. You know, a lot of our policemen have also been found to be involved in these attacks, using military grade weapons and cell phone jammers, etc. But you can look at any crime scenes, photos. These people have been tortured. Look at their injuries. Look at the holes that have been drilled. Look at the babies that have been drowned in boiling water. Look at the water thrown down, or the chemicals thrown down their throat. Is that not torture? Is that not torture? We have the evidence. We've got pictures. We've got reports. but nobody seems to want to look at them. You know, I was told in the first month of coming to America, you know, somebody says to me, "Oh, South Africa, wonderful." And I would very quickly say, "No, it's not." And I would jump in and give an example of why. And, you know, people would say to me, "Oh, no, we don't want to hear that. We're not ready for that." And, you know, Mike, we're not ready for that either. The people back home were never ready for this, but they have to live it. They are forced to it. So, you know, as ready or not as you want to be, it's not going to stay in South Africa. The moment those people are starving, like Zimbabwe, they're going to start coming over to all the other countries that are functioning, that are feeding their citizens, and they're going to come over and they're going to seep over, and they're going to do everywhere else what they've done.
Let me ask you something. And Alice and I have not done a rehearsal on this, so she's not aware of anything that I'm going to ask. And I say that as a caveat to you because I do not want you to answer anything you don't feel comfortable answering. But because this is an opportunity, so take it or leave it. Give our listeners an example of, if you can, of one of the worst, most egregious things that you're aware of that happened based solely on the color of the victim's skin.
Oh, there's so much, Mike. I mean, you know, the children, that just gets to me every time, because, you know, that's hitting where it hurts the most. But, you know, there's so much, you know, if I have to single out one, my book was written for a 9-year-old girl, Kayla Meyer. I mean, she was tortured along with her mom and her stepdad and her granddad, who was visiting from the UK. I've written blogs about her as well, you know, what must have gone on in her mind as she was chased down the passage, thrown into a storeroom, brutally killed. And it was purely done out of the color because of the color of their skin, because these people didn't have anything. They had nothing. They weren't wealthy. They had nothing, Mike. There was no motivation to be there. That was the one thing. Then these two kids on the highway, I'm sure you've heard about that. They went and stood without gas, and the dad went to get, and he came back and he found the kids shot.
That's a recent one. That's fairly recent.
Yeah, that was last year. You know, then there's Willemientjie, there's Vian, the little baby boy, I think he was six months old. You know, they tossed him like a rugby ball when they had finally killed him, and under a bed at his day mother's place, they killed her. There are so many that you can't justify as anything else. And then when they come to you and they say to you, you know, it's land or death, what are you supposed to think? What are you supposed to think? They're telling you. And that's what I don't understand. I don't understand from the world. It's out of their mouths. They are telling us it's land or death. They are putting the message out, kill the whites. They walk around with placards. They are saying kill the whites. We're not saying they're saying it. They are saying it. The evidence is there. The pictures, the videos all show them saying it. We don't go on hearsay. We're not relaying a message. It's there for the world to see. Out of their mouths, they are saying, kill the whites. So why are people still questioning that they are out to kill the whites?
Surely you must have a theory on that. What is your theory as to why that the world is turning a blind eye to this?
Mike, I wish I had the answers. I don't even know if I have a working theory on that. It just doesn't make sense to me, because maybe they just can't believe that people can be so sadistic and barbaric. Maybe they just don't want to admit it. Maybe they are under the impression that South Africa is run by white supremacists and racists. I don't know. But the message is there, and it's out of their mouths. Why can't they get that message?
Well, is South Africa run by white racists? I ask that because it's a question that somebody watching this is going to ask.
South Africa is run by the ANC government, who was banned in South Africa many years before because of terrorism. They were responsible for many bombings, many innocent lives that were lost as a result of the bombings. Not just bombings, I mean, their crimes were horrendous, and it all began with Nelson Mandela.
Who
The
is lauded
Pan-African,
who is lauded as a hero to so many
yeah,
people in the West.
yeah. And people forget what he was guilty of, and they forget why he went to prison, and they forget that when he was released, nothing changed.
Yeah.
That circular 213-6 was drawn up in 1993. That was their plan from the beginning. Do you know which one I'm talking about,
I
Mike?
do, but I want you to explain it to those who have no idea what we're talking about.
In circular 213-6, they had planned exactly how they were going to take control of South Africa, right? And every item on that circular is how they would be crippling the Afrikaner, the Boer, the white person in South Africa. And they've carried it out. Cyril Ramaphosa, our president today, was one of those who discussed the boiling frog principle. We all know what that is, right?
Yeah.
He the other day he was, I watched a video where he said, because you are white, you are from the apartheid era. So he's already judging everybody who's white. Never mind that they weren't even born during apartheid. That makes no difference to him.
You
We are
must pay
white.
for the sins of your fathers, according to him.
But,
Yeah,
Watson,
ridiculous.
exactly, Watson, there's no evidence of stolen land. I am yet to see one deed that does not belong to a farm owner or a landowner.
Yeah, how far back are we going? I mean, we're talking 300 or 400 years that the whites have settled and developed that land. Am I wrong?
Look, the Dutch arrived in South Africa in 1652, but before that, the Portuguese had already made a turn in South Africa, and they had established various points in South Africa as stopovers and etc. The Dutch arrived in 1652, where they were met with by the Khoisan, and through that, trading took place, trading, selling, buying, etc. The Zulus, it's close on 100 years later, made their way. Now, they were responsible for a genocide of their own against other Bantu nations. People are forgetting that. They actually accuse us of making up history, but it's not.
Right.
So they were killing each other. And, in Nelson Mandela's time, his wife, they were killing their own. In apartheid, the number of deaths was black on black. They were punishing their own by necklacing them. Nelson Mandela suggested they cut off their noses, right, to punish them, where Winnie said, no, let's necklace them. So they were killing their own, but where is that in the history? Who's teaching them that? Because the new generation don't know that.
Well, and for those that don't know what necklacing is, that is a terrible way to die, where you put a gas-filled burning car tire over somebody's neck and shoulders and they burn to death from the shoulders up. It's a very terrible way to die. And this was going on constantly not long ago. And recently, if you look at my past couple of videos, I talk about they're back to their old thing, only they're missing the tire and they're just dragging people through flames and burning them to death. Because listen, if the white people left South Africa today, the violence wouldn't come to a halt. There is a lot
Yeah.
of intertribal violence, black on black. The Zulus are burning the people from Zimbabwe because of you have a lot of the xenophobic hatred that goes on. And I didn't want to get too far into the weeds with the history of South Africa. I appreciate you going there because it's important to bring it into a little bit of context. But I want to focus more on this book that you've written. And first of all, I want to ask you, how is the book, when was the book published and how's it doing?
It was published in November 2018. But as you know, I didn't really have much to do with it until January this year.
Yes.
I do have my publishing rights back, and so we'll be able to tell from now forward. I actually really don't have a clue how it did.
Okay, so in terms of distribution, not money, but I mean it's starting to really get out there. And
Yeah,
one of my goals, and certainly your goals, and this is not a monetary thing. You correct me.
no,
I know I'm right. This is a message that, please, listeners, this has got to be spread far and wide, because I think that if there is a truth, even an uncomfortable truth that's taking place, I always compare, and sometimes I take flack for this, but I can stand up on my own with it. I compare what's going on here to the Holocaust, but it's a very slow motion Holocaust. And the big difference is we have social media, we have the internet, and there were many, many, many people in America at the time of the Holocaust who could rightfully deny that they had any clue that was what was going on. I mean, there were many, my family on my father's side was Jewish, and a lot of them had no idea of the exact amount of horror taking place because it's such a distance of with communication and whatnot. So now that we are aware of it, I think that if you're a semi-decent human being, you have every obligation to push the message down, look for yourself, find out if what you're hearing is true. And I can assure you that it's true. Because when I asked her to produce evidence, Alice, I can tell you that I get evidence every single morning from across South Africa, and it's evidence that there's no way that even with the freedom we have here, I could put on video because it's that horrific. The evidence is out there. I'm talking high definition videos. These people either videotape their own crap or other people, witnesses do. But the point is, as a good citizen of the world, no matter where you live, this is a message that has got to be pushed along. And I think that is one of the things that we would like to see happen here. What is your idea, Alice, in terms of how we can push the message of this book far and wide?
Mike, it's going to come to every other country sooner or later. You have an evil bunch, you have a bunch, and I'm not saying that it's Black people. Unfortunately, the evil lot that you find, the group that you find, is led by evil leaders, so it's not going to end there. It's not going to end in South Africa. It's not going to be limited to South Africa. So, even if you do it for your own country, even if you gain wisdom and knowledge and learn from South Africa now, do it now. By doing that, not only will you be saving a tribe, a very small tribe, and the numbers have gone down so much already, you'll be saving your own tribes by knowing what's going on and by understanding how it got to where it is. It didn't happen overnight. We didn't go to bed and wake up one morning and all this has happened. You must remember living in that situation for 25, 26, 30 years. I'll say 30 years because Nelson Mandela was released in 1990. And, that's where it began. You got to understand that living in something for so long, you become desensitized to what is happening around you. You become numb. The murders, you'd wake up in the morning, you'd have your breakfast, you'd hear, so-and-so that I knew was attacked in his home last night. He's in hospital. 5 months later, he didn't make it. But, you'll have your breakfast, you'll sit for 5 minutes and you'll think, what a terrible way to go through a night. And you'll think about it for 5 minutes, you'll finish your breakfast, you'll get up and you'll carry on with your day, and you won't think about it again, until the next one. So you don't realize that. And I think that's why it's so hard for people outside of South Africa to understand how slow it's been going. A lot of people say, why don't you do anything about it? Why haven't you done anything about it? Why didn't you stop it before it began? We didn't know it began until it was too late.
And what are the number? Yes, and what are the numbers differences for the audience in terms of population? I believe that there's probably a little less than 5 million whites.
It's less than that, Mike. For example, over 80,000 people alone had left for Australia this year.
Yes.
From the numbers that I got. I am speaking under correction, but I do think it's more or less the right number. So many more have left to other countries who were willing to take them in. So we've gone down, but we did make up 8% of the population. Now, you take, I personally think it's less than 4 million, but you take 4 million to 55 million, and you add another 5 million for the Indian nation and the colored nation, right? Which they are also minorities.
And you add those and you come up with a huge number. And for the audience that's new to the subject, in America, the word colored can be seen as a negative thing, but just for edification of the listener, colored people are actually a race of people in South Africa. It's not a pejorative word. They are a lighter skinned group of people that are considered a minority and have their own very similar struggles with the Africans. Yes. And just so that people don't, because it's very easy for someone to think that this is another white victims claiming that they're being screwed over by blacks, or it's a racial thing. It's so much deeper than this. This is this killing and this injustice and the laws that are in place to keep the, we could have a whole nother show about that. She mentioned 8% of the population. There are laws in place that mandate that if you have a factory, you have to have only 8% of the white people working there. And no matter what the skill level or lack of skill of the other people, they've got to be hired. So, Alice mentions that people are leaving. and there are many videos. I've done some look back on my videos. If you're new to the channel, I've got a family of 4 that's been with me almost a year now that I'm sponsoring. People are fleeing, but here again, for political reasons, most of the countries are not as welcoming as you would expect. No. Australia is having some problems. The people see the need and say, hey, these are aspiring, hardworking people that will bring, they already speak English. They want to get out as a way of asylum to save their lives. But governments who don't want to take a political risk and be seen helping white people, no matter what's going on, are making it hard. In Canada, the United States is not making it much easier. I can tell you from personal struggle. I've personally been involved in 3 families getting out. Not easy. There's the country of Georgia has taken some people, on and so forth. But coming back to the book, what is your message here for the entire world of people that want to hear you? I'm going to shut my mouth and you tell us, what do you want us to know? How can we help? What can we specifically do as citizens of this world to help fight this injustice, this horrific battle, this brutality, this killing and slaughtering and torturing of people? What can Mike do? What can the guy next to me do? What can we do, Alice? Help us help you.
Just see it for what it is. Don't take our word for it. Don't listen to what we are telling you. Find the information. There's enough. Go past the restrictions. Obviously information is being restricted. A lot of it isn't getting out of South Africa. We do have groups like genocide busters. We have a lot of groups that are stopping this from getting out. For example, the awards, they try to get my turn, removed from the awards. So they work full-time jobs to keep the information away from you. but you can find it. We have Facebook groups, we have Facebook pages. Yes, we do get penalized, we do get blocked, we do get thrown in Facebook jail. But there's Twitter, there's Instagram. Everything that comes out there is a snapshot of what is happening in South Africa. When somebody tells you they cannot be employed, believe them. They cannot be employed. They end up in white squatter camps with their children.
Which are growing by the moment, by the hour. Those squatter camps are growing.
When a rugby player who should be playing for the A-team rugby team is pulled out because he's white, believe that. When people are losing their homes and being murdered in their farms, some of them are of the impression that it's taking too long to get the land. So they help it on by taking out the farmers. Then ask yourself how much land is in possession of the government and why is that land not redistributed? So is land really the issue? Or is it more a case of getting rid of the last white person in South Africa? Is it really about land? Land redistribution is not new, Mike. A lot of them were remunerated. They were offered land or money, and they took money, So this isn't a new process either. The land the government sits on is like 70-something% of the land in South Africa. So, just look at it and see it for what it is and listen to the stories and look at the murders, look at the tortures, look at the threats against us, the public threats. Julius Malema should be in prison. But then you get a woman who was robbed out of anger, desperation, and frustration. She uses the wrong word and she's sent to prison, where others openly command murders, they command the killings, they command the babies to be killed.
Let's focus on that just because it's so important. And interrupt me anytime. I interrupt you. There's no rules here. You can step on me. I don't mind. The woman she's talking about used a word that is referred to as the K word, which is similar to the N word in America. Yeah. You guys on my channel that have been around know how I feel about that. The most protected speech in the world should be hate speech. I don't like being silenced. You silence people, it has other repercussions. Not saying I agree with the word. I'm just saying that you can't, when you make laws to shut people's mouths, you close their minds down and you become robots. Now, what Alice is referring to is this lady in the middle of getting robbed and talking to the police and frustrated. She threw out the word. It was videotaped. She's in prison, where conversely, the black Africans will stand in front of TV cameras and talk about killing the white, kill the Boer, one bullet, one Boer, on and on and on. So there's a contradiction. And the other thing is, I think people need to understand not everybody is up on geography and politics and geopolitical situations. For those that don't know, South Africa is, for all intents and purposes, a communist country. They are controlled extensively in terms of the media that they see. I do believe they see CNN, which doesn't surprise me. But in terms of what's provided for them on television, what they can say over the internet, what they can push out. When Alice mentioned her book and this competition, when she said they tried to stop it, the they was the government of South Africa. Now, we have a lot of battles in this fight to bring the truth out. One of them goes by the name of Lana Marks, not to get off into the weeds, but you get people in positions that put false information out, and it's like anything else, people, you have to dig through the first 3 Google searches to get down to where the truth is. So the farm, I also wanted to say that when you talk about, somebody may say, well, just give them their farmland back. If you took a bunch of people from New York City and planted them on a farm in Wisconsin, do you think that farm's going to still be operating within 6 months? Everything's going to die. It takes years and years. It's a science to understand. It's happened before. History is filled with this. You look at Zimbabwe. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, look up the history of Rhodesia. Find out what happened, how it became Zimbabwe. What happened to that breadbasket? Well, what happened is the same thing that's happening now. This is not a new scenario. This is called payback. This is called targeted racism and hatred. And when, like Alice says, when the targets are all gone, they're going to go somewhere else. And where do you think that's going to be? Take a look at what's going on in Europe right now and the crime that is now in once beautiful Germany. I've been there for years. All of these different countries that want to open their doors to everybody are the same people, by the way. Take a person from South Africa.
Yeah.
Now, you could be a jihadist who's got a history of combat on the battlefield, and you can come right on in with your entire family. But God forbid you're a white South African farmer who wants to survive. That we can't have.
No.
So that's my little rant. Alice, would you like to add to that?
Mike, just two things. The lands, farmlands that were redistributed. Have a look at them today. They don't produce. The buildings have been broken down, doors have been stolen out, the roofs have been taken, and it's been moved to the little camps, the livestock has died. I mean, we have a minister whose chickens were all dead, not one has been a success.
And if that doesn't, you reminded me of something. If the plight of the people doesn't grab you, let's talk about the animals for a second, because I have a soft spot for animals. Every South African farmer has dogs. It's part of a protection thing, and they love their animals.
All have dogs.
The dogs are slaughtered. I've got video of cows laying there with their hooves cut off, and they're still alive, and they do it out of spite because they're owned by the white farmer. There are videos that I can't ever unsee, and for me personally, I got my own problems. It's the animals that really affect me because they have no control of where they're at. But this is a horror show. Okay, it's a zombie apocalypse that's taking place. Alice talked about a little bit about, hey, what's for breakfast? So and so died. This is an apathy that manifests itself when people are surrounded by so much shit. And there's not a South African white person who doesn't know somebody or somebody who knows somebody that was tortured and murdered. I talk to people every day with bullet wounds on them, machete marks on them. These are the lucky ones. And to be honest with you, sometimes when these people are killed, it's the best part of the day because they've gone through 6 hours of crap it's predicated on tribal beliefs and ancient beliefs that if I can scare you and make you feel pain for 6 hours, I get some mojo out of you if I freaking kill you. Yeah. And this is not some story. This is reality, people.
Yeah.
This is what's going on in South Africa. And, the South African whites have become a population of people that apropos name, by the way, for your book, because the one I talk to them every day, they're not wondering if they're going to die. They're just wondering when they're going to die. I have people right now. I belong to WhatsApp groups, a Facebook group, South African. By the way, go to Facebook and look up LMS Tactical. But I belong to these groups that are specifically South Africans, and I have countless old ladies who sleep with the implements to commit suicide when the door gets kicked in because they don't want to be raped alive. One lady who's going to kill her kids and then herself. These are plans that you have to live with, people. Because
that's the plans they make, Mike.
They have these plans. And please, I mean, am I exaggerating here?
No, I know a lot of people that have that in their minds, that the moment that door goes down, they'll take themselves out before they live through that. It's not one person. It's not. We all have that. I mean, I have had to lay in my bed with my beautiful daughter next to me, my son on the floor, because I won't let them, go into their own bedrooms, and I'd lock my bedroom up. And that was my plan. If that handle does that, we dead before they get to come in, because I cannot watch my daughter being raped and tortured. No. I cannot watch my son's knees being drilled through, or boiling water poured down his throat, or drowned in a bath of boiling. I cannot do that.
Which these are common deaths, and for the audience, like every what's the word I'm looking for? Like every dictatorship, like every country that shifted over to communism, they are disarming these people. They have taken the weapons from the white people, and of course, everybody else has weapons. There are, as she alluded to, there are police officers that literally they rent their weapons out to go out and so the guys can go out and kill white people, and they bring them back. This is a reality. They've got military people involved. We're not talking about the old South African police where they used to actually have training and they were actually really cops. We're talking about people that couldn't put a gun together if their life depended on it, but they know how to point it and shoot.
Well,
you know,
Mike, have you heard of KGB Shabalala? Morris KGB Shabalala. He's in my book as well.
No.
He's an intelligence officer. Now, it's intelligence. It's not just a normal policeman. He's intelligence, right?
Okay.
In the 80s, he was part of a bank heist robbery, armed. It was a violent robbery. So they caught him. He I don't know, the whole story is in my book, but anyways, he still was in the police force. He was still in intelligence. He was promoted later. 20 years later, they were still looking for the dude, because he escaped or something like that. So they never caught him. He never served his time, but he was working right under their noses. He was still in the intelligence. And like 20 years later, when they now eventually found out, 20 or more, KGB, Morris KGB Shabalala is actually, high up in the intelligence today. And they blamed it on a computer system, a program. So that's our police.
And your government, if I'm not mistaken, has quite a few people that were that are ex-prisoners that were suddenly put in charge of the government.
There's so many of them that have criminal records. The numbers are also in the book. But, if you look at our cabinet, they're all criminals. I mean, I've got a whole piece of that in there as well. Even President Cyril Ramaphosa, I mean, he's not squeaky clean. He's got the MTN thing, and he's got the Moinoi shooting thing, So they all criminals. All criminals. We've got what's his name? I can never remember his name. He was head of the SABC TV. He didn't even have matric, and they were told, but he doesn't need qualifications. Jacob Zuma never even went to school, and he was our president for how long? He can't. Have you heard him do a budget speech? Have you ever heard it? 11 to 260 or now listen nicely.
Yeah. No, it would be funny if it I'm gonna wrap, and so I want to hit a few other points. What happens generally let me back up. For the people that aren't familiar, this is a new thing. And you stop me if I'm exaggerating. When you call the police in South Africa and say, hey, man, there's somebody coming in my house, I don't want people that are new to this to think. Now, if I called the police right now and just said there's a problem at my house, I'd get 6 cars and a helicopter in about 3 minutes max. Now, in South Africa, if they show up at all, it might be the next day, and they often will tell you, hey, we don't have a car available, so when you get a chance, if you're still alive, come down and tell us what happened.
If you get through, if the phone lines work.
If the phone lines work. Now, what happens if they accidentally catch one of these suspects? Because they don't catch these people often. But are these people prosecuted and put in prison for life?
No, not that I know of. Very few, actually. I mean, if you take that one farm attacker, just got 500 rand.
Yes.
Bail.
That's what I was thinking about.
He's gone. But you know what happened to me once, Mike? It was in 2018. My neighbor's alarm went off. Her house alarm, and her car was in the driveway, and it wouldn't, it kept going off, and I was so sure they had gone into her house, because just a week or so before they had cut out a circle out of a kitchen window. So me being who I am, I just ran over to see if she's okay, to help her. It doesn't matter if there's 4 or 6 in the house with her. I can't just leave her there. But when I got to her front gate, 2 of them came for me. One from this side, one from my house, and the one from this side. So they were like,
closing in.
And that feeling I had from, knowing this is the end, because you can see it on their faces. They had backpacks, so you can just imagine what was in there. And I just knew this is the end for me. But thankfully, the security company who the alarm was linked up to, they got not the police, the security company, and they came around the corner, and these 2 just, took off.
These are private security companies that take care of the people because the police can't be counted on.
Yes. So she wasn't at home. She had left with her husband that morning, which is why the car was in the driveway. But then the security company called the police because these 2 were obviously in my house. I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
So they called them. First of all, I had to wait 3 hours for them to show up. My husband, in the meantime, he went riding around and he tracked them. So when the police did show up, he could tell them exactly where they were. And they came back, they brought them to me and asked me to identify them at my house, So I felt very unnerved about that because by then my daughter was there and, so I didn't want that to happen in front of my family. But I did identify them. And the next day they were walking past my house again. So they took them away.
Wow.
No charges were laid against them. And the next day they were walking past my house again. So that's what happens in South Africa. There's no repercussions. There's no, the wrong people are being punished.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. What the book here, what will we get out of this book? What's the story on it? What is the story in this book? What is it going to teach us?
It's going to tell you about not ordinary murders. It's going to tell you how the murders happen, what's happened to each of those that I've mentioned in the book and how it happened. You can then decide for yourself, is it an ordinary crime? Our president has accused of people like us of internet crimes. Farm murders are only internet crimes because they're made up by us. But then you're also going to understand, Mike, it's not just the farms. It's suburbs, it's houses in towns and cities and villages too.
Or if your car breaks down on the road, it's a death sentence.
Exactly. It speaks about what they refer to as protest, I refer to as riots, because the moment you shut a town down and you start burning the cars and start throwing rocks at cars and start assaulting people, it's not a riot, a protest anymore. Yeah. It's a riot, right? It speaks about that. It speaks about the police corruption, the military, the cabinet, our cabinet. It speaks of the hate speech, Julius Malema and how far he goes. And everything is backed up. At the back of the book, every single allegation is proved. Excellent. So there's, there's nobody that can turn around and say it did not happen like that. It speaks of the broad-based Black economic empowerment and the ineptness of the people they are employing. For example, Eskom, they've brought in, or they're going to bring in, I'm not sure, have they?
They are the electricity, they're the electric provider for South Africa. For those.
They're bringing in Cuban engineers to sort out, when we've got perfectly fine engineers in South Africa, even better. But because they do not make up the quota of BBBEE, they will not use their own people.
Yes.
How is that right? How is that? What is the message? What is the message?
As a result of that, there are what they call load shedding, which are rolling blackouts that can last 8 to 12 hours, and it's common almost daily.
And unfortunately, phones can't be charged. Outside spotlights can't be put on. gates don't operate anymore.
Medical equipment, respirators.
Security systems go down, and they're more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder, is that not the idea with load shedding? Is that not the idea? Is to have
Where
these people vulnerable?
where can we get this book at, Alice?
It's on Amazon, the paperback and the ebook, and then most online retailers as well. For people in South Africa, if they don't want to get it from Amazon, they can request it at Exclusive Books. They do have it on their system, and most other bookstores. Barnes & Noble has it. Walmart, you can order it from Walmart. So it's everywhere.
Okay, and tell us briefly about this the competition. I'm using the wrong word here. The awards. What is that, and how can we help that book get to the top?
The awards it's an annual thing that takes place. I was lucky enough to be nominated in 2018 for another book. This year I've got 3 books on, but my turn is the one that matters, only because of the publicity it'll get and the message that it'll send out. And it'll stick it to them a little bit too, because
Sure.
wanting to withdraw my book, I didn't worry about it winning. I was just so happy to have it in the awards, and I would be so happy to reach the top 10. But right now, I'd really like to be number 1, so I can stick it to the lot over there.
Listen, everybody that's on this channel, I am imploring you, let's make this happen. This is a good way to stick it to that corrupt government who tried to stop this book from even being part of this. How do we do this? How do I get off this video and go move that book up by my vote?
Vote and share and get others to vote. You
can
only vote.
Where do I
once.
vote? Where do I vote for this?
I need to send you that link.
Okay, I mean the listening folks. In other words, I'm asking for the crowds.
It's on the website, authoracademyawards.com.
Authoracademyawards.com. Write that down right now, people, please. And go ahead.
Then you find the vote section.
Go to the voting, and I think it's page 6.
Page 6. Each page is a category. Page 6 is general nonfiction. So you just scroll down to the cover, which looks like this.
Yeah, let's see that. Okay, so you're going to be looking for this book.
Yes, and you just click on it, and the moment you click on it, you voted.
Excellent.
Your vote is registered.
So that click will submit your vote, and you'll be helping this book get to the top, which will achieve a lot of things. Primarily, we want to move this information out amongst the masses. Alice, do you have anything to say in closing? Anything that I missed that you wished I would have asked you that I did not ask you?
No, you've just about covered it all. I just want people to know that this isn't paranoia. It isn't a group of people trying to get rid of the blacks in South Africa. That's not the case at all. We were excited for a rainbow nation. We were happy living, in union with everybody. We didn't grow up in the apartheid mindset. So to us, it was never about color. We never even really saw a difference in color. I never did until they started forcing it on me. Right. When you hear you white and they black, and you white and they black, and you're the criminal and they not, you start seeing color. And that's not how South Africans are. That's not how we ever were. Our children had friends of all races. I had friends of all races. So this isn't a group of whites that are creating propaganda. No. There's no narrative for us. We just want our country. We want our home. We want our farmers to get out with their lives, to retain, farms have been in families for generations. They shouldn't be murdered off them. There shouldn't be the blood in the soil that feeds us.
Yes.
Everything's getting so much more expensive. Food is so expensive. People aren't surviving. That's the whole idea, is to get that message. People are they're not surviving, and you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take my book's word for it. Just find the information on your own, and you will find it. There are so many groups out there to destroy our voices, to silence us. I've had my home pinned online on Google Maps with my address here in America. You know, that's what they're doing to try and shut us up. They're trying to scare us out of it. Brandy has suffered immensely under these groups. So
Yes.
we will continue. You know, they're going to have to kill us too, I suppose, because we will continue. But I need people to look at the truth and to take it as the truth.
Yes.
And stop thinking that it's a group of people that cannot live with blacks. That's not the situation. And remember, you're going to wake up one day. If you don't do something now, if you don't stop it in another country, you're inviting it into yours. And you're going to wake up one day and not even know that you're waking up to it, because it's also going to take you 10, 15, 20 years to realize where you are.
That's right. That's right. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for I know this is not an easy topic to talk about, but I also know that it's an important one. I also want my listeners to know that I'm a little behind the curve, but I'm going to be interviewing next a survivor of an attack. So I think that'll bring us a little bit of a different perspective. And I think it's going to be well worth the listen. That's coming up. My mistake. I thought it was 8 o'clock tonight, but not doing the time thing. It's actually the person believed it was 8 o'clock this morning. So I'll try to get that for tomorrow, but I'll get that up as soon as possible. And we'll be doing some more interviews with some victims, survivors of farm attacks and attacks in general that are racially based. But in the meantime, Alice, I want to thank you so much. I wish you nothing but good luck with your book. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you for everything you do. I mean, you know, the way you just get things said is just the way it should be. So thank you for that. And thank you for not giving up on us.
Never.
And thank you for knowing that we're not all cut from the same cloth.
That's
we're
right.
not.
No,
so,
we're all people. And at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We'd like to have food in our bellies, some safety, and some security. I mean, I think no matter what color we are, we want the same things.
We're a very stressed out nation as well. And I need people to understand that, you know, a lot of our people are giving up and they no longer believe that help is coming. They don't feel that there's anything left for them. So they've become embittered and sad and, they've given up.
You remind me of, I'm so glad you said that. I would like to add something else that you can do. I think it's important for every one of us, and not enough of us do this. It's not as hard as it seems like with the technology. We need to reach out to all of our representatives, starting at the top. You can have the White House email address. You Google it, it pops right up, and you can send a 10-second message. You know, I'm asking my government to get involved and monitor the atrocities taking place against the white South Africans. And you send that to all of your representatives, whether they're in Congress. Let people know. If you're in Canada, you send it to the Prime Minister. Let people know that you're aware of what's going on and you're going to hold them accountable. Because I'm going to tell you something, history is going to hold all of us accountable for what we did or did not do in the face of this kind of bullshit. I'm sorry about my language. We have got to speak up now and not look back and say, boy, I wish I would have done something. You've got the tools and the technology. Make your voices heard.
And it gives them hope, Mike. You know, it gives those that are angry and tired and just they have no way out anymore. You know, I wish you could spend a night in the homes of these people and see what they go through just to be able to get into bed. This is a picture of my friend's dining room table without the blood.
Yes.
It's her Bible and it's her bullets on one table. This is how she prepares to go to bed. This is how they end their days every single day.
If they still have a weapon available. Yeah. But yes, I understand. It's a terrible way to live. Listen, you've got all my prayers, and I'm not going to stop fighting for you guys because it's the right thing to do. It's not a preference over color. It's any group of people that were getting this type of treatment. Yeah, you'd see me involved in it, and I know you're the same. So let's work together. And in the meantime, Alice, you stay safe, and I will look forward to talking to you soon and look forward to seeing how the book does.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you so much for everything you do for us
For the
book now. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, LMS Tactical. I think hopefully if you stuck with us long enough, you got something out of this. And please share this video. Share it if you're listening to the podcast. Share the podcast. I'm gonna have it up on iTunes as soon as they approve it. That can take anywhere from 3 minutes to 3 months. I've already had it out there for I guess a couple of weeks now. So hopefully that'll come in quick. In the meantime, everybody stay safe and sound. And LMS Tactical, I am out.